Nobody was expecting it, not like this. Not in a courtroom that had already soaked up months of tension, where secrets had spilled like ink across public records, and truths once breathed behind closed doors now rang out through legal documents and courtroom transcripts. But today, the temperature changed, not because someone cried out, but because someone remained quiet. And it wasn't Christine this time. It was Robyn. She remained rigidly next to Kody, arms crossed tighter than her jawline. A printed scarf wrapped consciously around her neck as if attempting to conceal something, anything, from the world observing her coming apart. Kody remained next to her, legs spread wide, chin pointed upward as if he still thought he could win the war he waged. Across the aisle, seated shoulder to shoulder for the first time since this legal sideshow started, sat Christine, Meri, and Janelle. There was a bond that didn't yell reunion. It spoke softly of reckoning, because today the judge wasn't talking about property, trust funds, or secret LLCs. Today was about enforcement. About what happens when a court finally concludes the patriarch no longer holds the purse strings. And as the bailiff brought the courtroom to order, nobody drew breath until the judge leaned forward and asked the question that broke the walls holding everything together. "Mr. Brown, why did you fail to pay the court-ordered support to your former wives?" Robyn didn't move, she didn't blink, but Christine did, just a fraction of an inch to indicate that she wasn't surprised. Since she had the receipts, and today was the day the judge was going to read them off his bench. Kody adjusted in his seat, pulled at his collar as if it had shrunk tighter than his conscience. "Your Honor," his attorney started, smooth as silk. "My client believed that payments to Mrs. Robyn Brown were adequate and were within the legal limits of support for shared family expenses." The judge's gaze narrowed behind thick glasses. "We'll get to Mrs. Robyn Brown's accounts shortly. But first, let's talk about the accounts tied to Christine, Janelle, and Meri, because according to the compliance report, none of them received a single disbursement in the past 90 days' silence." Christine glanced down at the worn leather binder she kept in front of her. The same binder that had already exposed years of fraud, sealed backroom deals, and emotional manipulation dressed up as spiritual leadership. But this morning that binder held only one section, proof of non-payment. 3 tabs, 3 months, 3 names, each tab marked with a red paperclip. "I'll begin with Exhibit A," the judge said flatly. Tapping his gavel once, the bailiff delivered the papers, and the courtroom watched, eyes darting between the sisters once bound by God, and now bound together by treachery. Robyn gazed ahead, blinked once, not twice, just once, as if bracing herself for what was to befall her. Kody, meanwhile, breathed like a man who believed he could bluff one more hand without getting caught up. But the cards had long since been played out, and the dealer, for once, wasn't in his corner. The first clipped tab in red glided across the courtroom table like a knife. It was Christine's. The judge opened up the ledger summary, read it, then leaned his head just far enough to make sure everyone understood the numbers were shouting louder than Kody ever could. "From this bank audit," the judge declared, his tone low but cutting, "the monthly support contract, signed, notarized, and agreed to by all parties, mandates an automatic payment of $3,200 to each of the previous wives for shared family expenses and child support." He looked directly at Kody. "Yet, not one of them received a cent for the last 3 months. Kody's jaw worked like he was chewing on excuses. "We consolidated through Robyn's account," he muttered. "It was easier. The structure made more sense." Christine didn't even blink. She leaned forward ever so slightly, placed a small black flash drive on the table, and let it sit there like a loaded weapon. "That motivation," she said matter-of-factly, "covers complete transaction history for the Brown Legacy Trust accounts. Each time Kody paid Robyn, and each time he didn't pay anybody else." The courtroom didn't gasp, but it breathed. In quickly, in unison, in anticipation, because the words "consolidated through Robyn" didn't just read strategic. They read confession masquerading as poor math and even poorer intent. The judge raised Christine's printout. "See this entry here," he explained, pointing. "Reflects a $14,800 payment to an account titled RB Enterprises, listed under Robyn Brown's sole proprietorship." He turned to Robyn now. "Mrs. Brown, would you tell me what this payment was for?" Robyn opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, she reminded him of a person struggling to stay afloat in a pool they once called home. "It was to cover property taxes," she said faintly, "for the Flagstaff house." "And yet," the judge continued, "those same taxes were already paid in February via an escrow deduction from the family trust." He set the paper down, meaning this was a second payment. Duplicate, personal, and unauthorized. Kody's lawyer shifted in his seat. "Your Honor, these funds were not intended to be deceptive. My client was trying to consolidate obligations between several households." "Then why," the judge broke in, "were those consolidations never revealed to the recipients they most affected?" Janelle shifted for the first time, speaking softly but clearly. "Because we were never the priority," she said. "Only Robyn was." The judge did not nod. He did not have to. The entire courtroom already did. Robyn's lip quivered. "Once, I thought." She started, and then the sentence just stopped. The judge brought his eyes back to Kody. "Mr. Brown, as of today, this court is imposing a restructuring of all ongoing payments. You will no longer funnel money through Robyn's accounts. Payments from here on out are to be made directly and in separate checks to Christine, Janelle, and Meri. No middlemen. No more secrets." And so Robyn, once the last filter between Kody's wealth and the other wives, was severed. Not cruelly, not with anger, just with the sharp edge of responsibility. Christine didn't smile. Janelle didn't nod. Meri didn't blink. But something changed in the room. Not a win, a balance. One they hadn't known in years. For a moment, Robyn said nothing. She did not beg, did not protest, did not even blink. She sat there, as if the court's ruling had not just severed the financial umbilical cord she'd wrapped around Kody's control for more than a decade. Her expression was vacant, not from rebellion, but from incredulity. Because in their world, Robyn was never supposed to be questioned, let alone shut off. Her account was supposed to be the safe space, the funnel, the vault that others couldn't peer into. But now, under the authority of a court order, it was being taken apart before her very eyes. And the shock wasn't on her face. It dwelled in the silence between her and Kody. Christine opened the second tab of her binder very quietly. This one wasn't for appearances. It was for memory. She pushed a printed PDF across the table, contained in a clear plastic sleeve, and spoke softly. "This is the 2017 clause that Robyn signed. When the trust was established, it was set to be through in 2020. But Kody renewed it, without informing us." The judge leaned forward, put on his glasses, and read out. "Upon marriage breakup or financial estrangement, any trust payment over $10,000 per month must be split equally between legal spouses and designated dependents." The quiet was broken, not by speech but by the expression on Robyn's face. Because Christine had just made public something even Robyn appeared to have forgotten she'd signed. A provision that had rendered her withdrawals not just excessive, but a breach of the very trust Kody insisted on guarding. Kody's face grew red, not with embarrassment, but with anger. "That was a symbolic clause," he growled. "It was never applied." "Until now," Christine said, her voice never breaking, "because you wrote the rules and believed you'd never have to live by them." That is when Meri got up surprisingly, unwanted, but with something in her face that even caused the bailiff to hesitate. "Your Honor," she said, "I have something to say." The judge waved her forward. Meri approached in unsteady steps, not vengeful, not wrathful, just determined. "In 2019, Kody explained to me that the household finances were being streamlined. He informed me we'd both be receiving the same support via Robyn, that she was the most responsible and boasted the best credit." She looked over at Robyn. "I believed him, I trusted him, but I never did receive $1 after that talk." "Not one," the judge nodded slowly. "Do you have any paperwork to substantiate that?" Meri dipped into her purse and brought out a crumpled piece of paper, a printed email. "He sent this to me when I inquired about my payment the following year." The judge read it, then read aloud. "All monetary concerns are being redirected. Robyn will oversee distributions temporarily. Let's not question things that keep us buoyed." He folded up the page. "This is not a delegation," he said. This is hiding behind flattery. Robyn looked at Kody now, her expression finally breaking. You said it was legal, she breathed. You said it was clean. Kody didn't respond. Not because he couldn't, but because anything he said at this point would be taped, analyzed, and potentially used against him in an underlying case. And that is when Christine turned to the last page in her tab. A sworn affidavit signed before a notary public who attested that all 5 wives were each entitled to receive trust payments starting 2021. We were never meant to be channeled through one person, Christine explained. We were meant to be equals. Robyn's hand shook. It wasn't the hammy crying the fans used to see on television. The mascara-smudged face, the stammering breathing, the confidential martyrdom of keeping the family intact. This was quieter spine, tinglingly motionless, her fingers clasped against one another, like she could literally stave off the collapse of her money safe. The courtroom was not witnessing a caricature of a villain breaking. It was observing a defense crumbling, because for so long Robyn had been the facade, the credit report, the checking account, the autograph. But now, revealed under oath and paperwork, she was merely a name on a page she didn't comprehend, sitting next to a man who used her faith. Trailing through the quiet like a strand pulled from a seam was Christine's voice. You knew, she said, not loudly, not accusatorially, but absolutely. You extended the clause in 2020, Kody. You locked in Robyn's control over the trust so that everything we were promised had to go through her. And you never told us. Not once. Kody banged his hand on the table, causing his water glass to rattle. You want to talk about trust, he growled. I trusted Robyn because she never undermined me. She didn't question every decision like the rest of you. She supported the vision. He looked toward the judge now, his voice strained. I did what was necessary to keep the family afloat, and I'm tired of being punished for it. But the courtroom didn't rally. There was no sympathy, no defense. Just the rustling of the judge's pages as he scanned the very same documents Kody had attempted to bury. Because this wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was about legal transgression. And Robyn wasn't just disconnected. She was now being scrutinized. The judge cleared his throat. On the evidence presented, this court is proceeding to initiate an official audit of the RB Trust, holding account formerly utilized for disbursements. Until the review is finished, Mrs. Robyn Brown is strictly forbidden from receiving, routing, or handling any funds that are related to the Brown family estate, such as TLC distributions, LLC payments, and trust funds. Robyn gasped. She actually gasped. Her hand flew out towards Kody's wrist, but he jerked away. Not harshly, but in sheer terror, because if Robyn couldn't lay hands on the money, that meant neither could he. For the first time, Robyn wasn't simply emotionally cut off. She was legally shut out. And Kody's whole setup, the funnel of access, through, loyalty, had just fallen apart. Meri reached out to Christine, mouthing something that none of the mics picked up. But Christine's slight nod spoke volumes. This was a fight they'd been waiting decades to wage. And the foe wasn't merely Robyn's signature on a bank statement. It was the regime of silence, trust, and selective privilege that made everyone else go hungry while one door always remained ajar. The judge glanced back at Kody. You are commanded to start immediate direct payments to all 3 plaintiffs, Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Meri Brown. Contempt proceedings will follow non-compliance. He paused. Is that clear? Kody nodded rigidly, his lips clamped tightly shut. Robyn did not respond. Her fists were still tight, her eyes fixed on the table before her, because she didn't just lose the money, she lost the fantasy of being invincible. Even before subpoenas and audits and binders full of betrayal came along, there was a promise, not documented on paper at least, but spoken, passed along like holy writ through the twisted network of spiritual family politics. Robyn will take care of it, Kody once replied. She has the cleanest credit, she can be the vault. And with that, no official vote, no signed contract, Robyn found herself the keeper of the money. TLC checks went through her, family assets in her name, even Coyote Pass payments, land belonging to everyone, were channeled through a woman who had never once slept on a twin mattress in Lehigh, or missed Christmas due to the family budget falling short. It was Janelle who initially spotted the rot at the roots. Back in early 2021, She asked for the Coyote Pass tax payments to be broken down. Some delays, perhaps even a couple of miscalculations, but not what she received. Silence, unanswered emails, forms stamped, pending. And Robyn, when questioned outright, just muttered, "Kody's taking care of it." But he wasn't. He hadn't been for years. So when Janelle appeared in court today, her hand clutching a printed notice labeled "Delinquent," she was not looking for revenge. She was looking for accountability. "These taxes," she held up the sheet, "were to be paid by last March?" I asked twice. I was assured the payment had been made, but this notice indicates otherwise. The judge picked up the paper, turned it over, and raised an eyebrow. "Who was the account manager for this transaction listed?" he asked. Janelle nodded her head toward a line. "That one," she said. "Arb Trust Admin, Robyn." Undefinite, the courtroom did not erupt, it imploded, silently. Because this wasn't just a failed payment. This was a bombshell that Coyote Pass, the utopia they had all been promised, had been allowed to decay under the supervision of the only wife who never intended to share it. Christine opened a side pocket of her binder and removed the original land contract. 5 parcels, equal shares, initial signatures from both wives. 4 had been revoked following Robyn's demand for restructuring in the interest of lending efficiency. "I was assured the new deed would show joint ownership," Christine said. Instead, the title company was directed to convey the parcels into one trust controlled by Kody and Robyn alone. The judge glared at Kody, who sat stiff, eyes unfocused. "Mr. Brown, is this true?" Kody blinked, licked his lips. It was temporary. We didn't mean to lock anyone out." But Christine was already turning to the next page. "That temporary deed, it is still active, signed by both of you, filed in county records, and used to block me from accessing my portion of the land last fall." Robyn shook her head, almost whispering, "I didn't know it would go that far." But the paper trail told a different story. The emails, the filings, the routing slips, they all told a tale of intentional channeling. And now, with direct payments mandated, Robyn no longer controlled the keys. The vault had been pried open, and what was inside wasn't gold, it was dust. The judge rapped his gavel once. "This court is broadening the financial audit to encompass all Coyote Pass transactions between 2018 to date. That means property tax payments, title transfers, and personal withdrawals tied to trust funds." Then he fixed Robyn with a stern eye. "And if it is found that these assets were diverted to enrich one party at the expense of the others, you could face legal repercussions outside of this courtroom." Kody let out a quick breath, his shoulders sagging for the first time in years. The court wasn't on defense. It was coming forward. There was a hush in the courtroom, almost reverent. Not reverence, but tension. As in the instant before glass breaks, when you can see the destruction is about to happen, but you don't know which direction the pieces will explode. Robyn sat in her lap, her hands clasped together, her eyes fixed on nothing, blinking in mechanical cadence. The woman once hailed as the obedient one, the obedient last wife, the pillar of Kody's crumbling kingdom, was disintegrating beneath the tide of evidence. The sobs began not with wails, but gasps. Like her body did not understand how to digest the horror of losing control. The judge did not slow. He did not soften Mrs. Brown, he told her, not harshly but firmly. "You've testified under oath to things that are now being contradicted by irrefutable evidence. This court is offering you one chance to explain. Did you know your place in the administration of the trust and financial distributions to the other plaintiffs?" Robyn's mouth opened. Nothing emerged. Instead, she glared at Kody like a child seeking permission to speak. But Kody didn't look at her. His stare was fixed on the judge, his jaw clenched, his temples throbbing. Robyn whispered finally, "I signed what he made me sign. I didn't read it all." Janelle, who had held up so well throughout the trial, finally let the facade fall. She pushed forward, her voice soft and controlled but with venom. "Did you not read the documents that decided our fiscal destiny? You didn't read the forms that removed our names from land we all paid for?" Robyn hunched her shoulders, her face turned away. And then Christine rose, not theatrically, not furiously, but with a determination that shook through the room. "This was never about who was favored," she said. It is about who was included even when the rest of us were left to go under. She dug into her binder once more, this time producing a copy of the original family charter, written out by hand and signed by Kody and all 4 wives in 2009. We consented to shared assets, equal voice, and joint ownership. This, she indicated the audit documents with her hand, is not that. This is betrayal wrapped in silence. The judge studied the charter. Is this your handwriting, Mr. Brown? Kody nodded silently. And are these your signatures? Kody nodded again. The judge leaned forward. Then let me be clear. If we can establish that this contract was breached in one wife's favor, and that the other sides were prejudiced financially because of misrepresentation, we're not discussing family disputes. We are discussing civil fraud. Kody actually winced. Robyn cried into her sleeve, now unable to maintain the act anymore. And Meri observed, arms crossed, eyes roaming around the room like a woman observing a burning house. Not surprised, not upset, just waiting for it to completely collapse, then the warning. One more false statement under oath, the judge stated, and I will begin contempt proceedings. And Mr. Brown, that is you too. For the first time since the gavel originally fell, it was Kody who appeared to be frightened. Not furious, not defensive, frightened, because his authority wasn't based on law, it was based on a story, and that story was now being torn apart by facts, contracts, deposits, signatures. He glanced at Robyn once more, hoping, perhaps praying, for a glimmer of strategy. But what he saw was a woman who couldn't even raise her head. It started with a memory, one that the courtroom couldn't perceive, but that lived searingly in the memories of all who had once braved bare feet on that dusty Coyote Pass landscape. The cameras rolled back then, the sun setting as if rehearsed, and Kody stood tall, speaking about legacy. This land, he said, sweeping his arms wide out to the horizon, will be our anchor, a home for our children, our unity in the earth. Robyn smiled at that point, gentle and warm. Janelle applauded. Christine wiped away tears. Meri, at the back of the lineup, wore her expression like a carved-out mask, supportive but uncommitted. That was the dream. That was the script. But that dream never reached the paperwork. Now in court, Janelle held up a printout of what was to have been the final Coyote Pass division, 5 lots, divided equally, names printed clearly, not hand-scrawled. This, she said, poking the page, was never filed. The judge tweaked his glasses. And what was filed instead? Janelle produced the actual document, 2 names, Kody W. Brown and Robyn A. Brown, no reference to the other wives, no notary seal. The courtroom hushed. Then Christine stood, binder clutched once more, this time to produce something no one anticipated. We located a duplicate of the notarized document, she announced, but the notary who signed for it, she no longer works at the office indicated. The judge arched his brow. You are alleging forgery. Christine looked down at her paper, then up at the bench. I'm saying the notary's stamp used here doesn't match any official record in the county's notarial registry, and she confirmed by phone she never witnessed this document. Robyn flinched. Kody inhaled sharply. The room froze. Fraud wasn't a family word. Fraud was a felony word. The judge motioned for the bailiff to collect the documents. We are going to send this on to the district attorney's office to verify, he indicated. And if this court is shown proof of forged notary documents, then we will shift from civil to criminal court. Robyn spoke then, barely more than a whisper. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The judge leaned forward. Excuse me? She lifted her gaze, her cheeks pale. It was supposed to be temporary. Kody told us we'd add them back afterwards. He only had to get the financing approved first. The bank didn't want as much risk, so he put my name on it. The room fell silent. Christine was the first to break the silence. And when were we supposed to be added back, Robyn? After the show concluded? After the trust sold the property to a private buyer? After we quit asking questions, her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with anger barely restrained. The judge made a notation in the record. Then, raising his eyes slowly, he spoke to the courtroom. We now have sworn testimony that the property was intentionally put into two names, shutting out rightful stakeholders in the promise of temporary adjustment. A promise never kept. That is misrepresentation. Kody sprang up suddenly without provocation. It was my idea. Don't blame her. Sit down, Mr. Brown, said the judge, raising a hand. Your time to testify will arrive. But it was too late. All those in the courtroom had already witnessed what they would remember most: Kody's desperation, Robyn's complicity, and the collapse of a scheme more than a decade in the making, all revealed in an afternoon. The stillness that followed Kody's outburst seemed like an abyss, wide, resonant, and irreparable. For a man who bragged about control, it was the first public fissure in a dam bursting with more than a decade's worth of dishonesty. But what happened next rocked the courtroom to its core. Christine moved forward once more. Not to challenge, not to condemn, but to testify. Her tone was level, but every sentence fell with the force of history. Your Honor, I'd like to tell you about the day I knew I didn't belong anymore. It was May 5th, 2021. I drove out to Coyote Pass. I just wanted to walk my stretch, breathe a bit. Remember why I'd hung on through so much? She hesitated, and the courtroom hushed. I arrived at the gate, she went on, and it was closed. A new padlock, not the one we used. I called Kody, no answer. Called Robyn, straight to voicemail. I waited 30 minutes in my car until a neighbor drove by and told me the new owners had changed the locks 2 weeks ago. Gasps. Christine looked directly at Kody. Each of us sold the land on which we had built our dreams, and you didn't even have the respect to inform me. The judge's pen hesitated. Is that true, Mr. Brown? Was Mrs. Brown not informed about the sale? Kody remained silent. Robyn blinked slowly, lips open but didn't say a word. Then something no one anticipated occurred. Meri got up. Not to defend Kody, not to avoid the drama, but to testify. I'd like to go on record, she said, as no longer remaining silent. Her voice did not tremble, it soared. I've been quiet for years. I thought being quiet was the way to preserve what we had. But I've realized that silence only serves those who benefit from secrets. She approached the stand and laid out a printed email on the bench. This, she explained, is a TLC and house production memorandum forwarded to Kody and Robyn exclusively, concerning a spin-off contract they made without discussing it with the rest of us. It was to be filmed on Coyote Pass, just them. For a fresh start, the rest of us weren't included. The judge read the paper and frowned. So not only were the plaintiffs left out of legal property records, they were left out of financial benefits derived from said property. Meri nodded. And this is just one of a few. The court clerk approached the judge that instant and handed him a manila envelope. It had a preliminary forensic report, listing deposits into a private account in Robyn's maiden name. The amount more than $1.1 million over the course of 6 years, all funded by Brown Trust Holdings. The account was not disclosed in prior financial disclosures. The judge pushed the envelope down slowly. Mrs. Brown, why wasn't this account disclosed during discovery? Robyn's eyes filled up. It was for the children, she whispered, to protect them. The judge wasn't swayed. Intent doesn't eliminate legality. This court is commanding a subpoena of all the financial records associated with this account and those surrounding entities. For the first time, Robyn seemed like she was going to shatter completely. Her face went white, her hands shook. Even her normally rehearsed grief yielded to an expression of raw fear. And in the back row, Gwen, Christine's daughter, gritted her teeth. She'd been subdued throughout the trial, but now she leaned forward to her mother and whispered something. Christine nodded. The court would never know yet, but what Gwen was now about to turn over would alter the entire course of the case. And as the judge rapped his gavel for recess, he exited the courtroom with words everyone did not expect. Mrs. Robyn Brown, if any more money is discovered to have been stolen or secreted away, you will be held personally accountable, apart from your husband. Robyn had been cut off, financially, legally, and socially, and now the courtroom was aware of it. The court came back on the bench after recess, but the atmosphere in the room was no longer the same. The air wasn't merely tense, it was charged. Everyone sensed the unraveling, and it was Gwen who now possessed the thread that would unravel the whole house of secrets. No longer a daughter in the shadows, she stood up on purpose, her hands grasping a black zip-up binder, frayed at the edges. It seemed plain, but it was not. It contained screenshots, email threads, voice memos, even video that had never been seen. Gwen asked to present it as an exhibit under seal. The judge agreed. What came next was unprecedented in the courtroom. An unscripted, unedited video taken from a recording Gwen set up when she met Kody at Robyn's house, where he candidly confessed to investing show income into an independent account for family management. His words were explicit. "They don't get it, Robyn. They're not business-minded. This fund isn't fraud, it is future-proofing. And if they keep digging, we'll just say it was TLC's idea." The footage ended. The silence did not. The courtroom was stunned. The judge blinked twice, then looked to the TLC representative sitting in the back, clearly not expecting to be called into this legal quagmire. "Is this true?" the judge asked. "Was your network involved in the creation of off-record revenue channels through the Browns' contracts?" The representative hesitated. We can't guarantee the validity of that clip without our lawyers being there," the judge retorted. "Then bring them, because this matter is no longer a family feud. It is a corporate risk." Kody rose to his feet once more, perspiring visibly. "Your Honor, that video was shot surreptitiously. Gwen wasn't entitled to tape us." Gwen rose to her feet, combative and unyielding. "I was entitled. You were profiting off my name and my face, and I never saw a dime. You used us all, and you thought nobody would fight back." Robyn went white as a ghost. She didn't come to Kody's defense this time. She didn't budge. The judge drummed his pen on the bench. "Effective immediately, this court is directing a freeze on all accounts known to be associated with Brown Trust Holdings, Robyn A. Brown and Kody W. Brown, including any accounts maintained under their children's names that seem to be associated with displaying profits." That is when the courtroom erupted into whispers. Christine leaned over to Janelle and said quietly, "It is finally happening." Meri bit her lips, keeping a half-smile of vindication and sorrow at once. TLC's rep stood. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, the network is ready to unveil internal communication that could elucidate our position and distance ourselves from liability." The judge motioned them on. A printed packet was turned over. It contained an email by a TLC executive rejecting Kody's proposal for a Brown dynasty spin, off unless all 4 wives were willing to participate. Kody had responded, "They don't have to know about it yet. I'll handle them." There it was. Fraud by deception. Collusion, suppressed income streams, hidden spin, off negotiations. It was more than a marital collapse now. It was a media scandal unfolding in real time. The judge paused and delivered a devastating warning. "If the network can prove these funds were solicited under false pretenses, your entire production income may be subject to restitution." Kody's jaw clenched. Robyn finally whispered, "We're going to lose everything." But for Christine, Janelle, and Meri, it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about truth, about being acknowledged, about being viewed not as supporting actors in Robyn and Kody's drama, but as the ones who created the Brown dynasty, who supported it on their backs for decades just to be cast aside when the cameras went dark. And now the truth was louder than the deception. At last, when Meri stood before them in that courtroom, no one was prepared for her words, especially not like these. For years, she'd been the silent soldier, the overlooked first wife, the one who always attempted to remain steadfast long after the ship had already started to go down. But today, there was steel in her voice, and her very first statement stunned the room into silence. "I gave Kody access to my inheritance to help purchase Coyote Pass." Gasped Christine, blinked in shock. Janelle gripped the armrest of her chair. Even Gwen, now sitting behind the bench of law, stood up straight as if her mother had let a thunderclap fall in the middle of the courtroom. Meri went on, "In 2018, when he explained to us that we had to move quickly in order to purchase the land, I drew $140,000 from my retirement and inheritance funds. I signed no contract, I never got paid back, and when I subsequently inquired about my portion of the writing, I was instructed by Kody to stay loyal or walk away. I remained." The judge nodded forward. "Do you have evidence of these transfers?" Meri produced a manila envelope. Out came bank statements, wire transfers, and an email chain that included Kody's casual dismissal. "We'll make it up on the back end. Your name doesn't need to be on the deed. Your family." The courtroom fell into a stunned silence again. Undefined, but this time it wasn't just shock. It was fury. Judge Hamilton raised his voice for the first time in the trial. "Mr. Brown, you were advised by your counsel not to speak unless directly questioned. Undefined, yet your name appears across multiple informal agreements, property title documents, and now, possibly, fraudulent financial schemes involving multiple wives and misappropriated personal funds. Undefined, you are on the edge of perjury." Kody stood, red-faced and trembling. "Undefined, you don't understand this family. Undefined, we did everything together. We made decisions as a unit. Undefined, they didn't care back then. Undefined," the judge fired back. "That's not what your emails say. That is not what the bank books indicate. Undefined, and certainly not how the law would define consent, financial inclusion, or fiduciary duty." And then the judge uttered the phrase that got headlines before the hearing was even over. "I see no difference between what has occurred here and what I would describe as calculated emotional extortion in the context of spiritual leadership." Robyn gasped openly. Undefined, Janelle breathed softly. "Did he just say extortion?" Christine's hand flew to her mouth, shocked. Undefined, even the bailiff changed position. At that instant, outside the courthouse, media cameras recorded the panic. Undefined reporters on all outlets were frantically respinning the Sister Wives narrative, not as a TLC soap opera, but as an actual court scandal with fraud, financial extortion, and possibly racketeering implications. Inside, Judge Hamilton went on, "Subject to formal consideration of the documents filed today, I am proceeding to initiate a special hearing on all marital and post-divorce financial agreements made by the plaintiffs and the defendant." Meri sat down. She was tired but not broken. In fact, for the first time in years, perhaps decades, she looked free.